gratitude. I love thinking about it and contemplating and talking about it. And you know I talk a lot about it. A lot. So, you know me. As most of you do. Know that I love to talk about these things. And so today, so this month, like I said, we're focusing on the courage it takes to live a life focused on being grateful rather than being cranky. Okay? And it takes a little courage to do that, right? Because we could get easily sucked in to the crankiness of the world, and I'm just calling it crankiness because that's the nice word I could use. Right? And it would be really easy to get sucked into the pessimism and the cynicism of the day, and that just cuts off our channel of appreciation and gratitude. You can't live both worlds. You can't be grateful and cranky at the same time. It doesn't work. And so it takes courage to, in the face of a world that's, flinging crank at you. Oh, it's going to be a good day. Just look at that. That it takes courage to step up and own being grateful and own the blessings and joys that come to you in your life. So today what we're doing is we're exploring the connection between gratitude and joy. Gratitude and joy. They are intermixed, they're interconnected, and you can't have one without the other. Now, as humans, and we've talked about this before, that as humans one thing that we share across the board is a deep desire for happiness. One of the motivating factors behind all things that happen throughout history is a desire to be happy. It's as if the seed has been planted within us from the beginning. And that all of our motivations, and you can look out in the world and see that some people make different choices about the ways that they go about trying to get to that place of being happy. I wouldn't necessarily agree with the pathway that most people choose to try and get happy, right? That's a story for another day. But that's the main motivating factor. And so the idea is that happiness translates to other experiences in our life. It brings, when we get to a place of feeling that innate happiness, we experience a peaceful mind. We experience a connection to others. We're able to connect deeply to other people. We have a sense of hope and purpose. And the truth is that's our true natural state of being. That we are a place of joy. We come into this world, let me tell you, even cranky babies don't come in cranky. Okay? They're a little bit cranky about having to come in to this world. But their true state, our natural state of being is one of pure joy. Our natural state of being is one of peace and connection and happiness. That's alive within each of us. And something happens over time that all of the, what are we going to call it, crank? Am I just going to call it the crankiness of the world? Just kind of builds up. I did not plan to use that as the word, but that's, I guess, the word for today, because that's what's coming out. So, but for most of us, we get sidetracked along the way, and whether it's early on in our life or whether it's along the path, we start to get motivated by something else. We get motivated by a deep a feeling that we're not enough. We get motivated by an idea that we're not capable, and whatever enough is, right? Whether I'm smart enough, or thin enough, or young enough, or old enough, or blah, blah, whatever enough is that you think you're not. That's the thing that's sidetracking you from experiencing the true nature of who you are. And that becomes our motivating factor, proving to the world that I am enough. And so we create all of these experiences and hurdles for us to try and get over to prove that we're enough, when the truth is you're enough just as you are. And when you can get to a place of realizing that you are whole, perfect, and complete, just as you are right now, with all your faults and everything all the judgments that you have about yourself, that's when we open the door to experiencing that deep connection to joy that's alive within us. So there's some comfort in knowing that it's already there within us, that it's always there within us. And no matter what's happening in our life and whatever challenges show up and whatever comes down the pike, that we have that capability of still being peaceful, still being connected, still feeling that deep joy, even though we may be faced with some of the most difficult tragedies that you can imagine. Because I'm not standing up here saying that life is great and everything's beautiful and it's all fluffernutter, you know. I don't believe that. Because I know that stuff happens, and I said stuff. Life can be really hard, and we can be faced with very difficult challenges. And let me tell you, not only in my own life, but in the blessing that I have of partnering with people through their lives for the last couple of decades, let me tell you, I've heard a lot of challenges, a lot of trauma, a lot of difficulty, and I know that happens. But even in that, there's a lot to be grateful for. Even in that, we can find peace. Even in that, there can be a deep experience of joy. But we can't do that of our own human little minds that believe we're limited. We have to move into that place of a deep connection to the infinite, a deep connection to God. We have to work on that relationship, right? The relationship we have to the power and the presence. Now, I'm comfortable calling it God, and I'm going to do the thing that I do periodically where you could call it whatever you want. You could call it the universe. You could call it love. You could call it peace. You could call it the force. You could call it God. You could call it spirit. Whatever the word is for you, there is an infinite presence that loves you so much it created you. And it has thought of every individual quirk that it could to give you, to make you that unique expression in this life. And God does not create you and then drop you off on the street corner waiting for the bus without a quarter. I guess the bus is more expensive these days, but that's what I think of when I used to get on the bus. But it doesn't do that. And sometimes we feel like that, right? Sometimes we feel like we've been forsaken. Sometimes we feel like we've been left out in the cold. God, where are you? Show up. We're looking the wrong way. God's always there for us. And our experience of appreciation is what allows us to connect deeply to that. I think we're moving into a new season. My eyes are watering, so that's why I'm not crying yet, but we're moving into a new season. So this is my new season. I was going to share before that for my friends here who are following, it's the coconut oil has turned solid again, right? It's coconut oil season, and the winds are causing all of the reactions, so that's where my eyes are going up. Okay. So anyway, so today, my talk today is gratitude is the mother of joy. And so when we choose to live from that place of gratitude, we begin to break down all those barriers we've built to experiencing our true nature and the peace and the connection and the possibility and most of all the joy and happiness. Again, from the reading today that Kim did, M.J. Ryan in the book for the month, Attitudes of Gratitude, reminds us that consciously cultivating thankfulness is a journey of the soul. That's what we're here for. Our soul's journey is to appreciate what this life has for us. And it begins when we look around and see the positive effects that gratitude creates. And so what happens, though, is that we get trained early to strive for success. We get busy climbing the ladder in whatever area we're working, whether it's in our career, our families. It just feels like it's one thing after another, right? We're striving and striving and striving. And so often we forget to pause and look around and enjoy that moment, to relish it. And so we are being called to create space for joy in our life. We have to actually create space for it. You can't just expect ourselves to be happy when we're overscheduled and we're overextended and we're not taking care of ourselves and all of those things. Where is space for joy in that? Where is space for peace in that? There isn't. Where is space for creativity? I read an article this week that said that we're scheduling ourselves so much that there's no space to create anything new. Creativity and joy need space. They need some time. They need unstructured. I think of my daughter when she was really young. She was in a Waldorf school, right? It's very natural and crunchy and really lovely for the kids' imagination. And they had all this unstructured time. Your heart needs unstructured time. to be able to open to what's possible, to what you're really desiring, to realizing how you're even feeling. Sometimes we are so overextended that we have no idea where we are in space. You get that? Do you feel that sometimes? That we can't even see what's actually happening. We just know we're overwhelmed. And we get to that place where we get so full, and you put one more thing on it, right? You add one more thing to that top of that pile of your life, and what happens? We either collapse or we explode. And that makes a mess in our life, in our relationships, and the experience that we have in our work, and all of those things. But if we were able to just pause and start to create some space for joy, start to create some space to acknowledge what it is that's going right with us, we change the dynamic. We can shift it and change it. And so here's the deal. Gratitude and joy are inseparable. Joy is defined in the dictionary as an emotion evoked by well-being, success, or good fortune, or by the prospect of possessing what one desires. And so joy feels like an opening, a swelling in the heart, right? It feels like it feels to me like a fountain that comes up from the center of just pure excitement for life. While gratitude is defined as the state of being appreciative of the benefits received, you can see that there are two sides of the coin. Joy and gratitude go hand in hand. And so in other words, whenever we're appreciative, we're filled with a sense of well-being and swept up by the feeling of joy. And so I'm reminded of young kids, right, of young children, that they are exuberant and joy-filled creatures, that they're eager to embrace life and all its mystery and its majesty. Everything is new and exciting. Just think of it. Have you watched a toddler play with a box, right? When they get a present, that they're so excited. The box opens and it closes, and it opens and it closes. Or a snowflake, or bubbles. Oh my goodness, God forbid we even bring some bubbles to a party. And they can just stay for hours. And it's part of their natural state of being. But something in the process of growing up, we get a little jaded. Well, I don't. I still love chasing after bubbles. I bet that doesn't surprise you. But we get jaded. We get tired. Our eyes get a little clouded about what's possible, and then we lose that sense of awe. I was reminded when I was thinking about this week of when I first got together with my husband and my stepchildren were young. So Cassie, who's our middle daughter, who I called yesterday to say, can I tell a story about you? And she was very happy for me to share this story. And she remembered it, which made me really happy. But Cassie was 8 when I first met her. And that first summer that we were together, Cassie's mom and dad were both working a lot. And I had a flexible schedule, and I didn't want her to sit around in somebody's office all day for her whole summer. And so I would take her on little adventures, and I would take her out and do things, and it was a very odd experience because she's like, who is this person? Now, I'd been around for a few months by then, but she was like, who are you? You know, she's 8, she has no idea who I am. And she's like, oh, my dad's girlfriend, okay. And so I took her to the beach one day, and I'll never forget it because we went, and now truth is, I am not a big swimmer. I've never been a good swimmer from the beginning. I think it's because my mom put me in swim lessons at 8 o'clock in the morning in New England in the summer. And I never really learned how to swim. And since I came to California, I'm not a big swimmer in the ocean either. It's a little bit big for me here. So there I was with Cassie, and I'm the one who's in charge, right? So we get to the beach and we drop our stuff, and I'll also never forget it because we put sunscreen on. Like I basically dipped her in sunscreen because I'm like a helicopter parent for other people's kids. And then I asked her to put it on my back, and I didn't realize until a week later that she just basically went, blink, you know? And so I had a burning red back, except for one little handprint. It was really clear. So anyway, so then we get all sunscreened up, and then Cassie just takes off 100 miles an hour straight for the ocean. And I'm like, oh my God, she's running into the waves. And she didn't stop, she didn't even pause. She leapt straight into the waves. And she's jumping up and down and waving her arms, screaming, this is joy, it's joy, you know, and she goes so far out, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do with this? And so I pull her back to a saw the capability and the light in her eyes. And she still has that. At 25, she still has that light in her eyes. But in that moment, I had a revelation. I had such a clear revelation that I remembered the teaching of the master teacher, Jesus, when he said, "Be like the little children, and you will enter the kingdom of heaven." I remember standing there in the ocean going, oh my God, I really am a minister if I'm having a spiritual experience at the beach about Jesus' teachings. What is this? Oh my goodness. But that's what he was talking about. He's not talking about be naive or young or powerless or whatever. He's not talking about that. He's talking about being present to the awe of life, of what's capable for us, what's possible for us, and you will find the joy that is the truth of heaven. Because heaven isn't after this life. Heaven isn't something that we create later on. Heaven isn't something that's a reward for being good. Heaven isn't that. Heaven is the experience of the fullness of life right where we are. And we are each capable of experiencing that. We're each capable of creating that. That joy is the truth of what this life can be like when we are one with the amazing magnificence that's around us. That's what heaven is. And I'm so grateful that she taught me that. He's encouraging us to tap into the gratitude and awe and to be present like a child. There's another story about a man named Tom, who was a businessman, and he climbed the ladder of success for his whole life. But unfortunately for Tom, he was motivated through negative feedback. He was motivated through criticism when he was young. Every time somebody said something about him, he just put more effort in and said, I'm going to prove that I'm wrong, right? But what happened is as he advanced through his life, he translated that not only to outside criticism, but to his own self-criticism. And so every day, and he succeeded really well in business. He got an MBA from a prestigious college. He went and got a high position in a Fortune 500 company, and he was one of their best producers. But every day was not enough. He was so motivated to do more, to push more, and it was because he felt really bad that he didn't do that extra call, or he didn't make those extra contracts, or whatever it was. Every day ended with him with a deep sense of not enough. And it got to the point where he was so unhappy with himself and his life that he was about to end his life. He got to the point where he was so far out on the edge that he went for help, and he said, I just need meds. And he went to a psychiatrist, and he talked to the psychiatrist, and he said, listen, I need help. I need you to write me a prescription. And the psychiatrist said, listen, I hear you, but I want you to try one thing before we do this, for a month. I want you to take a month, and every morning, I want you to find one thing that you could be grateful for about yourself. Some talent, some ability, something about yourself that you could be grateful for, so you can think about that every morning. And every night, what I want you to do is write down one thing that you were proud of or you're grateful for that you accomplished in that day. And that was it. And he said, do this, come back. If you're still as miserable as you are, I'll write you a prescription. And that's all he did. And so what he found out was, what Tom found out was that gratitude is a natural upper. And that whenever he, and so much so that whenever he felt a lull during the day, after the first couple days, he stopped in the middle of the day too and found something else to be grateful for, and he felt himself naturally rising in his mood. He started to see his life differently. He started to see his work differently. He started to see his capabilities differently. And he didn't lose any success. He was still as productive and successful as he had been before. But he was motivated from a sense of, yes, this and. Not enough. Yes, I can contribute more. Yes, I can do this. Yes, look at what I've done. And so instead of beating himself up and feeling like he wasn't worth life itself, he started it from a whole new place and transformed his life. And part of it is this. If you leave with anything today, this is what I want you to remember, is that gratitude takes you out of living in comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy. Teddy Roosevelt said that, right? I love that quote. Comparison is the thief of joy. And so when we are comparing ourselves to some ideal of what we think we should be, or to somebody else, or just doing our natural keeping up with the Joneses, right? Whenever we're doing that, we are not appreciating who we are in our life. We are not able to connect with that true sense of joy within ourselves because we think we're supposed to be something that we're not. We are this and. We are being and becoming. And so, yeah, we're flawed. Yeah, maybe we're a little whatever. You can fill in the blank there. But you're this and you're becoming. More and more, God's essence is one of evolution and expansion constantly. And you are a center where God is. And so you are constantly evolving and becoming more. That's why I love this philosophy so much, because we are never stuck. We are never stuck in a situation that can't evolve or change. We're never stuck in a place where there's only the darkness and the challenge. We have the opportunity to create great joy, but it's in an acceptance of who we are, an acceptance of what is, and an ability to start to see those things that we can be grateful for. And even if it's this, if you are in the middle of a difficult moment, and I've been there and I know what that feels like, if you can only be grateful for the breath that you have, or the fact that you got out of bed today, that's enough. If you can only be grateful that you got yourself here, to see me do my little craziness or whatever, it's enough. It's enough to start that creative unfoldment, that creative expression, that upward spiral. Because when we live in comparison, all we're doing is going into limitation. I'm not this, I'm not that. We're affirming that not enough. And so it works on a bunch of different levels. Because when we go into that place of comparison, when we go into that place of feeling like we're not enough, in that place of judgment and the negative emotions, right? The idea that depression, stress, what happens is we get a tunnel vision as to what's wrong. When we are focused on the problem, all we can see is the problem. We can see the problem in this part of our life, and we can see the problem in that part of our life, and we can see the problem in this part of our life. Then we get this tunnel vision, and what happens physiologically is that it releases adrenaline in our body. Okay, and adrenaline is the thing that suppresses our immune system. It holds back our ability to heal and repair, the body to repair itself. And it stresses us out so much that it ages us. I need to tell you why those presidents look so different 4 years later when they're done with their thing. It's because they live on 100% adrenaline 24/7 for all those years, right? But what happens is when we go into a place of appreciation, we start to release the endorphins. That it's that natural feel-good drug that's within our own body. That when you go into a place of appreciation and gratitude, that's naturally released, and that's the healer. That's the thing that repairs the damage in the body, that pumps up the immune system, that supports our health and our vibrance. It makes you look 20 years younger than you are. If that's the only reason to be grateful, okay? I'm sorry if I have any plastic surgeons in the congregation. I don't want to take your people away from you, but I do want to do that. Because when we step into that place of appreciation, we start to move into a place of the light. We start to spiral energetically into a new way of being. We start to feel better. We start to heal those things that have been aches and pains for years, right? They start to get better because we're grateful and our body aligns to that truth. And then that opens the door for our joy. That opens the door for that unfoldment. And again, you can't be grateful and unhappy at the same time. At the same time, you can't be grateful and worried. I have some Olympic gold medal warriors. You know who you are. Right? And so on some level, I think, and this is because I have some Olympic gold medal warriors in my family and my circle, And I've observed them for years. But what I realize is this: on some level, when we are worriers, we think we're doing something. We think we are expressing our love for the person we're worrying about. Right? We think that that's our love, that we're concerned for them, and that that's something we can do is worry about them. Let me tell you, that's wrong. I don't say that very often, but that's just wrong. It's not work. It's not true. When we worry, there's no room for happiness, just fear. And what we know in the science of studying the science of mind as good religious scientists, what we know is that when we focus our attention, our mindset, our energetic on one thing, we create it and call it forth to us. So when your mind is focused on the fear, when your energy is focused on what possibly could happen, that's the worst case scenario, what do you think we're going to create? The worst case scenario. You're not helping the person by worrying about them, because you're probably helping to create your worst fear for them, which probably isn't their own fear either, by the way. They're probably not afraid of the same thing that you are for them. And so when we worry about something, we are using our creative energy negatively. We are using our creative energy in a way that's going to call forth to us exactly what we're worried about, because God wants to prove to you that you can handle anything. That you're stronger than you know, that you're more capable than you think. And so, yeah, if that tidal wave's going to come, whatever the tidal wave is, you're going to survive it. You're going to be fine. But do you really want to prove that to yourself? Do we really need to do that? I don't think we do. And so if we can let go of the worry, if we can focus on what it is that we want to create, if we can turn from the fear to the faith, and we do that by being grateful, by finding something to be grateful for. Because you can't worry and be grateful at the same time. And so sometimes it takes, the interesting thing I was telling someone this week, I've been teaching a bunch of classes, so it's probably both of them, all of them. But one of the things that I noticed is that we are called in religious science, in this philosophy, to work a little bit harder. It takes a little bit more work to live this way. So we don't have an easy out on anything. So it calls us to be aware. It calls us to wake up and to think a little bit deeper. It calls us to cultivate an understanding on a deeper level that allows us to connect to what's happening in life. And so that's not always easy, and it's not always fun. But with a little bit of attention, a little bit of work, a little bit of practice, we can start to create something new. It's not a passive philosophy. It's not a passive life. So when we wake up to the fact that we're connected to something greater, and we wake up to the fact that there's another way of being in our life, and when we wake up to that and we put our attention upon it, you'll start to see things unfold. That's why back in the day, a couple of decades ago, it was all about manifestation. It was all about manifesting parking spaces and palaces and princesses, right? Like it was about, let me show you how I could get a parking space at the mall at Christmas. It's coming up. Anybody who does that in the front. Parking space in the front. That's the thing. Parking space in the front at Christmas, right? Like that's the idea. And so it's not really about that at this point. It's about cultivating and manifesting a deep understanding and that deep sense of peace. It's about cultivating and realizing that joy lives within us. It's about realizing how God's showing up in our life, even in those subtle ways where we think that there's no pathway forward and the door opens. When we look at that and say, there's God, it starts to train our mind to realize that we are surrounded by God. And we do that through gratitude. We do that through appreciation. We do that through acknowledging it. And so when it comes down to it, gratitude's the antidote to bitterness and resentment. When we move into that place of worry, these are the things that get in the way of your joy. Comparison, worry, bitterness, resentment. They're like a black hole sucking in all the energy around them. And so I want you to think of someone in your life, and if they're with you, don't look at them. But someone in your life who lives in that energy, right? Who lives holding on to some resentment from years and years and years ago, or who lives in complete worry. I know we all got an aunt who does that, right? Or a cousin or somebody we know, a neighbor who just lives in that negativity. Do you even want to be around them? What's their existence like? Is that something that you know, is looking at a model? Is that something that you want to emulate? No. Now think of someone who's just grateful and who's happy. We all got one of them too, right? Give me a nod if you got someone. If not, I can point them out. They're all in the room. Okay? You know, some of the happiest people I know are sitting in this room right now. And it's because they know that they are perfect just the way they are. And their life is an adventure. That's the best example I can give you as to why we want to move in one direction rather than the other. And when we hit those roadblocks, and nobody's 100% on either side of this. Please don't think that I'm saying that you're either going to be all this or all that. But we all have our moments when we hit that speed bump in our life. And when we hit that speed bump, and what my best wish for you is that you're going to wake up and say, okay, I've got a choice in this. How am I going to handle it? First thing I want you to do is find something in the situation to be grateful for. And if you can do that, you can handle anything else that comes, anything else that shows up. And so the book, again, reminds us that while there are plenty of things in life to be justifiably annoyed, angry, or hurt at, I'm not denying it. It doesn't mean that we should completely ignore all that is beautiful, good, and touching, because that exists side by side with it in our life. And so, like always, we're a choice as to how we're going to relate to life and to God. We can move away from the perfection of life, questioning every little bump or challenge or difficulty that shows up and saying, see, life's against me, God's out to get me, this isn't going to, I'm alone, nothing's going to work. Or we can move into the situation to realize what the gift and the blessing is at the center of it. That everything that happens to us is calling us to a higher level of being. Everything that comes to us, through us, as us, around us, is awakening us to the idea that we are stronger than we think we are, that we are more capable than we think we are, that we have more opportunity than we thought to move in a different direction. Life is working with us in a symbiotic relationship, and we can either allow the gift to come forward and be grateful for that experience, or we can push it away. And you know what happens when we push it away? We don't take the gift, and we don't recognize the lesson, and we don't accept that truth. It gets louder, and it gets more challenging. And so my goal for all of us is to kind of calm that all down. And I would have used a different word. Because it does happen. Stuff happens. But we are more capable of handling it than we think we are. And there's more blessings in our life than burdens. But we have to wake up to what that is. And so there was one more story from the book that I was moved by, I wanted to share. And it was about a young woman named Lauren, who was 17 years old, and she was part of the foster system in California, and she had lived in 12 different foster homes since she was 8. All of her, when she moved from home to home, all of her belongings fit in a plastic bag, in a garbage bag. And this one man, Dave, met her when she was about to age out of the system. And she had no place to go, no place to live, she had no money, no job. And but Dave shared that she was the happiest person he had ever met. And he asked her, why? Why are you so happy? How can you be so happy? And she said, well, you know, it was my time with Mama Jean. And she told the story about when she was 10, she lived with a woman named Mama Jean. And she gave her a little rock and told her to put it in her pocket. And every time she touched it, she wanted her to think of one thing that she could be grateful for. She wanted her to think about something in her life or in life itself that she could be grateful for. And that girl carried that rock around with her for years. And it was the reason why she had this sense of appreciation and a deep connection to a sense of joy, again, despite the experience of her life. And so today I've got a little gift for y'all. My friends are going to come on down. Come on down. You guys can start. So I got a little rock for you. So this is my invitation for you this week. Go ahead, pass them out. So you get to take a little rock. Don't throw them at me. Don't throw them at each other. Put them in your pockets here. And then what you get to do this week, the spiritual practice for this month, is to carry around for the month. Put it in your purse. Put it on your desk. Put it in your pocket. And every time you touch it, every time you see it, I want you to say something that you're grateful for in that moment. Let's practice this and see how we can change the energy of our lives. Let's practice this and see how even in the build-up to Thanksgiving dinner, when we have to sit with all the people who think differently than we do and who have different opinions on what's going on in the world, that we're not going to throw our rocks at them, that we can be grateful that we're all together no matter what. Because let's face it, there is so much to be grateful for in this life. There is so much to be grateful for in this life. And as we are grateful for that, we open that door for that natural fountain of joy to come forth in that sense of awe. And we move into that place of being like the little children and create heaven on earth. And so